Hi everyone, this is Rico Figliolini. I'm host of Peachtree Corners Life. Appreciate you joining us, whether it's Facebook Live or if you're listening to us on iTunes or Spotify or iHeartRadio. Thank you for joining us. Before we get into our guest today, I just want to say thank you to Atlanta Tech Park here in Tech Park, Atlanta, in the city of Peachtree Corners, right on this miraculous 1.5 mile road that's part of the Curiosity Lab at Peachtree Corners, which is the autonomous track that just opened just recently. But Atlanta Tech Park is an accelerator, similar to some degree to Prototype Prime down the block, which is an incubator. Um, Curiosity Lab at Peachtree Corners. Right. And Prototype Prime is part of that now. Originally it was separate, but now it's all together. Thanks, Lord. But we are in the podcast studio here at Atlanta Tech Park, and I want to thank them for allowing us to use the studio. It's a great place, lots of companies here, lots of workshops. The ability to find and connect and network here is unbelievable. Next month is going to be a tech showcase that's happening November 14th, I believe, NATS, I believe it is. And you can find information on livinginpeachtreecorners.com or just Google Atlanta Tech Park and their website will pop up. So thank you for these facilities for us to use. And now for my guest today, City Councilperson, City Councilman, we discussed how we should do that, right? City Councilman Lorri Christopher. Lorri, thanks for joining me.
It's an honor to be with you.
I appreciate it. Lorri is one of the original founding City Council people that started with the City of Peachtree Corners and actually prior to the city. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that and about yourself?
Oh, a little bit about me. I've lived in Peachtree Corners since 1983, full-time.
Okay.
I worked in Peachtree Corners in the 70s and 80s in the Summit Building. We had our technology firm Burroughs was located there, where we developed financial applications for the world.
Wow.
We had over 400 people in that facility. So I've seen Tech Park when it was at its heyday, and I've seen it since, and it's so exciting about what's happening now.
Yes, it's like full circle almost, right?
We're getting there.
Lorri has an impressive background, I gotta say. MBA, Emory Finance, Georgia State, Global Commerce, E-commerce, IT graduate work at Georgia Tech, Hofstra University, undergraduate math. A long history not only of schooling, but also of a long history of being involved in all sorts of things. She's back from Africa, 14 days there as well.
I was there doing a service project with a school. We had partnered with a local Rotary Club, the Arusha Rotary Club in Tanzania, and they had identified a number of projects that they needed help with. And so along with 3 other people, we went over with some money and some computers.
You told me you lugged in your luggage, actually.
We took them all over in our luggage, and they all made it.
Wow.
And we were fortunate to be involved with a group that wanted to give in that community as much as our area wanted to give in terms of making the project a success. Sometimes you get engaged in these projects and it's a one-way street, but the people we worked with were equally as committed in spite of the challenges that they face.
Right.
And that's kind of how I view some of the things sometimes we face as a city councilman, because we'd like to do everything, but our funds only go so far.
This is true, and the good part is that the city is somewhat debt-free of things, right?
We are.
Yeah. The town center, we're debt-free
The town
there.
center is debt-free.
The millage rate is 0.
That's true.
There's, for a small city that's only, how old are we now? 6 years old?
Well, we're 7+ years old, and the bottom line is we've been able to do some things that we hadn't planned, because we didn't plan to buy the property where the town center is now. We had other initiatives in place at that time, but because of the citizen input and desire, they did not want that turned into garden-style apartments.
Right.
So we ended up buying the property, and we tried for a long time to sell it. That didn't go really well. We're just coming out of a recession. And so the city chose to build a town center there as a place for people to gather and be together. And it's debt-free.
Yeah.
The other thing is, how fortunate can we be when we bought the town hall, our city hall,
Right.
because we have a tenant on the top that pays the rent for us. So our mortgage basically is being paid by a tenant. So in my opinion, we work really hard at keeping the millage rate zero and being fiscally responsible.
It's interesting. One of the few cities that haven't built their own city hall, for example. Lots of cities around here, Duluth, Sewanee, well, not to say that's a bad thing for them to do, but they went out, they built their own city halls and stuff. And rather, the city decided to take a building already existing in Technology Park, in the hub of the city.
Well, it was important to us to bring Tech Park back and make it successful again, because it was the heart of the area during the 80s and early 90s, and it attracted people to our community. And if we hadn't made an investment in Tech Park, I don't think we would look that good, because we're asking business to do it and we wouldn't.
Right.
And then to renovate something that's there, I think it's an important thing to do.
Yeah, and I mean, and it's proof in the pudding, if you will. I mean, we went from a 26% vacancy rate, and we're under 20, 19.
19.
So, I mean, things
Property
are coming back.
taxes have, property appreciation has gone up over 10%
So
during the period we've been a city.
now, do you think that's part of what the city's done? Do you think that the reason for that?
Well, it's some of the things the city has done have spurred innovation, have spurred growth in the city, and attracted people to our community. And we're trying to create places where people can live, work, and play, because they don't really like being caught in traffic. The challenge we have is we have a major highway running through the middle of the city that we have no really control over, other than figuring out if we can do anything to maximize the throughway part. So we've worked on light streaming, so that we partner with our neighbors in Johns Creek and further north to sync up the lights to keep things moving when it goes through.
Because it's a Georgia State Highway, I believe, isn't it?
It's a state highway.
State highway.
Yes, we have, in our city, we have state highways, we have county highways, and we have city highways.
3 different governments trying to figure out how to work together.
And we have collaborated a lot, because we partnered with the state in getting the access road improved to get on to 285. We've partnered with them on the county on street projects, both in sidewalks and in highways and paving. So no city can exist as an island.
For sure. Do you think that, I mean, let's go to sidewalk infrastructure investment, for example. We've had $20 million invested in 2015 alone in roads and sidewalks. SPLOST is a big part of that.
Yes, it is.
And that's coming up again, I believe.
There'll be a SPLOST initiative in about a couple years.
Okay.
And the whole deal of us becoming a city, as most people probably remember, was we weren't getting SPLOST. So we're the largest city in population and area. And so our citizens were paying into SPLOST every year before we became a city. Well, that same investment did not come back to us as an area. And the only way that would happen is if we became a city. So that was one of the reasons we became a city, in addition to being able to manage code enforcement and planning and zoning.
Now, we did have, back, I guess, a certain time before the city, we did have a commissioner that was a sitting commissioner that lived in Peachtree Corners.
Yes,
in
we
fact,
did.
we currently also have, well, actually.
No, we don't have one living in the city now.
Now we don't, but we did. Lynette Howard.
For many years,
right.
Yes.
So.
I mean, we had people looking out for us.
Sure.
But you're talking a 6-1 vote, you know.
It's a big difference, and we do have a good commissioner now in Ben Koo, though, I would say. But so I would assume you'd be in favor of another SPLOST update again and re-upping
Well,
it.
we're in favor of SPLOST because some of the things we've been able to do have been primarily funded by SPLOST. The city's revenues come from franchise fees, business licenses, and other types of fees associated with being a city,
Right.
and SPLOST. But SPLOST generates for us around $9 to $10 million a year.
And then mainly for roads, sidewalks, transportation?
Well, it has to be part of roads, transportation, sidewalks.
Okay.
The county handles education, the county
Sure.
handles police force.
Right.
But I think it's important for people to know how that works. But we have intergovernmental agreements also with the county for other services that we don't provide.
Are there services that you think the city should take over? I know we recently took over water and sewage. We took
Right.
that over just before Peachtree Station had the road fall out.
Right.
I forget which road it was,
But that
the
was an
sinkhole.
obligation of the county,
At the time.
and they provided us some money to do that because it was their obligation before that.
Before that, and fortunately enough, that was already being looked at the time, and plans were in place. So
Plans were in place.
Correct.
We had to improve some on those plans, but it worked.
Yeah.
We also preserved, helped acquire Simpsonwood,
Simpsonwood Park, right?
yes, because, see, the county was able to only invest so much in Simpsonwood Park.
Mhm.
And if the city had not assisted them in that process, that would probably be a development today.
Because I think if the way that was zoned would have probably allowed 200 plus homes to
At
be
least.
built there.
Mhm.
And that's right across, for those that don't know, is right across from Simpsonwood United Methodist.
Yeah.
It actually was the retreat
Yes,
for Simpson United Methodist.
well, I've known that property for a long, long time,
Wow, well, yeah.
being in the city a little while. We
Right.
raised all our kids here. They all graduated from Norcross High School.
Right, wow, okay.
Our oldest kids were at Peachtree Elementary when Brooks Coleman was principal. And Brooks is a former House
Yes,
member.
yeah.
And
Okay.
so then they all went to summer hour. And then our daughter, who's the youngest, she ended up at Pinckneyville after a year at summer hour.
Okay.
And
that's,
they all went to Peachtree Elementary, and then she ended up at Berkeley Lake Elementary one year, and the next year at Simpson.
Simpson. Probably when it opened, I guess,
Yes.
right?
Oh, yeah.
So what do there's been so much accomplishment. And I, people that listen to me on these podcasts, and I don't have problems with anything, for the most part, that the city has done. Maybe the original plans for the pedestrian bridge, I had a bit of an issue with, but I didn't have an issue with the bridge. I had an
Right.
issue with the
The
size of
design.
the bridge, the design, the
And
money
the
being
cost.
spent, correct. Now, that's been pared down by more than half
Oh, yeah.
from the original estimates.
Absolutely, and you can see you can see the progress beginning
And
on
it's
the
starting
bridge.
now, right?
Yeah.
Because they put up the
Yeah.
blocks and stuff.
Yeah.
So they're starting to level out the ground, I think, right?
Well, what'll happen is they build the infrastructure for the bridge,
Right.
and then one weekend, they'll put up the arches.
Because it's a prefab,
And it's
right?
It's a beautiful bridge in terms of representing what we're familiar with in our city.
Mhm.
So I was primarily, very honestly, in favor of a tunnel.
Really? Like the
Because
Johns Creek Tunnel?
Well, I've seen a lot of tunnels internationally,
Uh-huh.
and they've worked very well. And it doesn't. Let's say if they wanted to add 2 lanes, say to 141,
Uh-huh.
it isn't going to affect the bridge. It wouldn't affect the tunnel, but it would affect the bridge. So that was some of the reasoning I had. But I'm very happy with the final design we came up with for the bridge, and I feel it'll be well used. And it wouldn't have made sense to start the bridge till we got the town center there.
Sure. The bridge to nowhere would not have been.
No, they had that up in Gainesville initially, and in fact, they just
Right.
finished their bridge.
Right. So the bridge is going to be coming up, and and I know there are plans for a offshoot pedestrian sort of walkway for the
Well,
botanical gardens
it'll be
park and stuff.
it'll be like botanical gardens, but
Right.
it'll be a park type place.
Right.
It'll be beautiful.
Now, And listen, the city has done a lot of things. They bought the park at Simpsonwood. They
assisted in acquiring the park.
Correct. It was $1 million plus, and Gwinnett County footed most of the money actually for it. And it's a Gwinnett County park, not a city park.
The parks are Gwinnett County
Correct.
parks, and we are very blessed in our city because we have 4 parks on the Chattahoochee River. And we have wonderful places to people to play and enjoy. We do really need, though, some play space in the south side of town.
And where in the south side do you think?
I think that we could find some property around Mechanicsville and around that area, over on the, toward the Winners Chapel and that side, Jimmy Carter area, because those kids really don't have access to the type of amenities that are on this end of town. And I think that's something that we need to work with. The county does parks, and we just need to help provide a little incentive and initiative to do that. Now, the other thing, though, that's coming, and they've got the design for, is the upgrade of Simpsonwood Park.
Right, the master plan for that. But they're still keeping it a passive park.
Oh, it's always going to be a passive park.
They're just expanding on the...
They're going to add a couple overlooks.
Right.
They're going to improve the trails.
Correct. In fact, there's going to be a paved trail and the multi-use trail.
There's going to be multi-use paved trail, and also there will be a playground, but it's going to be very interesting, the play space, because it's going to be in the trees.
Really?
Now, you take these little children, and it gets a little warm in the summer, and every playground is out there in the hot sun.
Yeah, for sure.
And we've found a design for a play space that is in the trees.
So when you're saying in the trees, you mean like under the tree canopy?
It'll be under the tree canopy.
Because I'm thinking treetops, but under the tree canopy. And you're right, most of the Gwinnett parks are not built that way. Gwinnett County parks tend to clear a space and put the playground area in an open space. So this would be under the canopy.
There'll be a pavilion under a canopy. Right. But we'll see, the other part of it is that it protects the environment when you do that.
Sure.
I'm kind of a green person.
Okay.
And, every day today we hear more and more and more about being green. But it means a lot for the future of our children and grandchildren. And I'm a great grandma, so I'm even more concerned about it. But I think that that's an ideal way to do that.
When is
there are 2 types of parks in Gwinnett. There are passive parks and active parks. And so Simpsonwood is a passive park, which means very little development in the park and keeping the trails and that available to everyone to play. And Jones Bridge Park was the first county park. I don't know if most people know that.
Probably not. I would think.
And that was why it has been redeveloped, because it's totally different than many of the other parks, but they have been bringing it back into that type of status.
In the last couple of years, they just renovated that whole area.
Yes, they did.
When are they releasing the master plan for Simpsonwood then? Or I thought there was still some more work to be done on it.
Well, the plan is done. See, the funding is in the next SPLOST.
So nothing's going to happen for the next year or 2 or 2 years, I guess.
Right.
Okay.
But the park is open and available to the public.
For sure. And it's a great place. I've shot some photography in there. We've done some videos in that area.
We've hosted Arbor Days there.
It's a beautiful chapel building there as well.
Oh, it is.
So to go back to a little bit about, the county has services that are, some of the services are being supplied, like Gwinnett Police does policing, Gwinnett Fire,
Police, and
EMT,
emergency medical.
So they do all that. We've taken over the sewage and the sewage services from the county. So we get funded for that. Those dollars come directly to us now.
Yes, they do.
And then we can spend that money here.
Yes.
Based on per capita.
And take care of the problems that might exist
in the city.
And when you have, some places we have more than 40 and 50-year-old infrastructures to deal with.
For sure. And so are there any other services that you think that the city should take over also, that the city may provide or that you see in the future that the city should provide?
Well, I think we have some challenges in a couple areas. One, we don't have enough senior housing
Okay.
in the community for what's projected
Mm-hmm.
to be the number of seniors statewide.
Right.
We've seen the numbers just dramatically grow. I think that's important. And like I said, I think we need some more play space that, what we need to do is encourage and partner with the county
Okay.
to get play spaces for people that don't have play spaces.
Okay.
So kids have a chance to get outside and be safe.
Well, I mean, I know Brookhaven was just at a Brookhaven candidate forum, and they're talking about pocket parks.
Yeah, we have a pocket park.
Do we?
Yeah, we have
Where
one
is that?
pocket park down behind the condominiums, where, down behind that area where Lynn Williams lives.
Yes, I know. Crooked Creek.
It's a little further
Further.
than Crooked Creek,
Okay.
but
I
yeah,
didn't
and we're,
realize there was a pocket
we're
park.
putting in multi-use trails, and
Sure.
we'll see things improve when those trails go in and gets down really toward Crooked Creek, and not all in Tech Park.
That's right.
So that'll happen.
Okay.
I think that, we've had some people say we need more affordable housing, but that's a challenge. And when you think about affordable housing, you gotta find the right way to do that. Because what happens is if you have too much affordable housing, it decreases the property values of people in the community. So any decisions we make in that area have to be very carefully thought out. We do have on the calendar some potential development over in the Mechanicsville area.
Right.
That could be supportive of that type of development.
Now, I noticed that other cities are talking about the same thing, affordable housing, because you want to be able to have people that can work in the community
Yes,
and work in jobs that are local jobs. And it gets expensive to live. Even in the city of Peachtree Corners, it can
Sure.
be expensive to live
sure,
for a family, let's
yes.
say, a family of 2 or 3. Is there, I mean, there are ways to adjust for that, though, no? Are there any suggestions you have?
Well, I think you have to find a developer that's interested in taking advantage of some of the resources that are available that permit affordable housing and acquiring the property. We've faced some of those same challenges when it comes to apartments. Our city has spent probably 7.5 years trying to incent and trying to acquire some ancient old apartment buildings that
Yes.
don't need to be here.
Right.
But the challenge is that because of our education system, which is so wonderful, those places are full. So a landowner doesn't feel like he has to be inspired
Right.
to do something different.
When there's 95% occupancy, I mean, full.
But I think it's
For rental.
important that the public should understand what the challenge is there. Because we couldn't afford to buy them at the current rate.
Right, and no one
because-
else wants to buy them, actually, because it's expensive to.
Right,
Because to be able to buy that, usually, there's a cycle, right?
right.
So things go bad,
Yeah.
property values drop,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden you can buy that property.
Right,
now
and we've done,
renovate it.
well, we did that with our city hall.
Right, that's right. And
We
there's
did
other-
that in acquiring the prototype prime building.
That's right, and that was through a grant, so that
Yes,
was pretty much, that
through a
was for
grant.
free, if you will.
Yeah,
Also, so that was no debt also on that
Right.
one.
so we've worked very hard at being fiscally responsible
I
and
don't,
trying to deliver good things to the citizens. There's still many things, there are a lot of things that we need to think we can do, but we have to figure out how we fund them
so
and
how,
move them forward.
are there,
'cause-
are there other things that you'd like to see done that we haven't, that's on the board maybe, or?
Well,
on your-
there's a lot of, people have asked a lot of questions about a second bridge.
Right,
And we have in the comprehensive plans for a second bridge that bridges the gap from the hill down to Holcomb Bridge.
that's right. So, and that was in the master plan, actually.
That's in our
right? Yeah.
comprehensive plan.
So is that gonna be coming at some point?
We have a strategic planning meeting coming up in November
Okay,
where we'll look and see what the things are that are most possible for the coming year.
Okay.
But we're going to be focused on bringing the community together. I think the other thing we need to do is find more ways to engage more citizens. I mean, we have over 43,000 people in this community.
Right.
And there are opportunities for us to collaborate and come together and address many things, like the Peachtree Corners Business Association does a lot for our community.
Sure.
The United Peachtree Corners Civic Association brings all the homeowners together.
Sure.
But we need to have other groups, like thinking about an art center and a music center for the city.
So
That would be important.
There's an art council, right?
Yes, we have an art council
and we
that
have
looks at those things.
We have a plan, I think, out of them, or at least a study
Yes,
that
we
was
do.
done.
We have the start of a plan.
Right. And that near and dear to my heart, because I would love to see an art center
Yes.
actually built with a theater in it, and an event hall probably
Right.
that could be used as a gallery
Right.
as well.
Right.
Is
Those are things that I've always been particularly interested in.
Do you have a particular place you'd like to see that?
Well, we have a little property that we acquired,
That would be a
Near the
perfect
town
place, right off
center.
the town center, right?
right?
That would be cool.
It'll be interesting. I'd like to hear the citizens' input, really, on what they would like us to do with that property. Because some would like to see us expand the town green,
Mm-hmm.
and some might be more interested in an art center or that. And I think it's important to get citizens' input in what we do.
Sure, makes a lot of sense. And I think there was a study, so there was a survey.
Yeah,
that
there was a
done.
study, and
So,
we do check the citizens out and ask them to tell us.
right.
Right now, we're working very hard to figure out, I get a lot of questions on the Michigan U-turn.
Oh, the roundabout you're talking about?
No, not the
Oh.
roundabout.
Which, Michigan
They're
U-turn
looking
is-
at the
Oh, yes.
intersection at East
Yes.
Jones and 141, which is the most trafficked intersection in the city.
Mhm.
And the proposal has been, because the state would fund the majority of it, to do Michigan U-turns. There's a lot of concern about that. And
It's a
I'm
little different. I've been in Detroit where I used one
uh-huh.
several times, and you had to get used to it because it's
Yeah.
a lot different than what you might see here
Oh,
on
yes.
the East Coast.
It is, but there are some of them in other areas of the state,
Yeah.
and they are successful. And I really think it will increase safety
Okay.
in those.
So you think that might be coming, a couple of those, or at least one of those?
Maybe, maybe not.
Okay.
Because a lot of people, see, the other thing is it'll change the whole corner there dramatically.
For sure.
It'll tie up traffic dramatically for a while.
While they
So
construct it.
Yes, so those are concerns, but I think safety should be our first concern.
I mean, listen, the construction of something is always a one-time thing anyway, so
Mhm.
it's the outcome, whether the outcome is going to be for better or worse,
Right.
is what it's about, right?
Right.
All right, cool. There were a few other things. So the city's involved, obviously, with the Curiosity Lab
Mhm.
at Peachtree Corners,
Right.
the autonomous vehicle track. City Council was thinking visionary ways to
Mhm.
bring the city forward when it first started by funding some of these things. Originally with Prototype Prime as an incubator,
Mhm.
and then evolving that into much more.
Well, we're very fortunate to have 3 incubator
Yes.
environments in our city.
Sure.
I mean, I've always believed in that because I grew up in the technology industry since 1965.
For sure.
And if you don't have a way to do innovation, you're not going to grow. Because you're creating new jobs, you're creating opportunities for people. And that's what Paul Duke saw when he came here back in the 80s.
So what do you see happening over the next couple of years? What more beyond what citizens might see now with the autonomous track and all?
Well, the autonomous track was built primarily to attract industries that were related to the autonomous vehicles and all the technology that goes along with it. What other things could be autonomous? That's the question you can ask.
Okay.
And like we saw in the dedication, the drone delivering a package.
Right.
You've got people talking about autonomous scooters.
Right.
And the whole thing about autonomous scooters is what they want to be able to do is get the scooters back where they belong after they've been used.
Right, seeing those scooters drive around by themselves, heading back home.
I mean, so that's a part of the autonomous area.
Mhm.
But what other developments are going to occur in medicine and in
Right.
healthcare?
Right.
And areas like that are also areas for innovation.
Biomedical and pharmaceutical.
Well, in
Or are you talking about retail
in
medicine?
telemedicine,
Uh-huh.
and the extensions of telemedicine that might enable people that don't get access to medical services have them. I'm totally excited that Gwinnett Medical located their operation in our city.
Right.
I've been pushing for that since I was a councilman because we didn't have any of that here.
And Northside just took that over, actually.
I know.
So,
Yeah,
so,
they merged.
Yeah, getting bigger. Northside's getting bigger in the north part of Atlanta as well now.
Oh, very much so.
The issues that arise sometimes from some of these developments and stuff, privacy issues. I talked with Brian Johnson on one of the podcasts on Prime Lunchtime with the city manager about doing about the cameras and license plate identification cameras as well as facial recognition type cameras for security.
Right.
We talked about how those could be put out in different parts of the city, and even in near different neighborhoods or in front of different neighborhoods.
And the neighborhoods can make a choice on whether they want to do that or not.
Do you find that as a good thing?
I think safety is important.
Okay.
And, you know, it's kind of like some deterrents serve to keep people safe.
Right.
So that, I mean, the good people aren't going to mind you putting out a camera.
But there's privacy to a degree.
But the access to those devices are limited.
Okay.
And the information is protected and encrypted.
Okay.
So that it isn't like it's wide open for access for everybody.
Right. And we
I
talked a bit about that.
The city is not going to track how many times you come and go home a day.
No, I'm sure the city won't be doing that. But you're right. There will be restrictions on its use, from what I understand from Brian Johnson.
No question about it. I mean, the use is only for safety and for crime prevention.
And we want to stay ahead of that. I mean, the city hasn't had real. I haven't heard. I mean, I keep watching.
We just had a murder
crime.
last night.
Yes, we did. That's right. That's right.
And it's sad, but there's some of the problems like the opioid crisis and those items. I mean, those are things that we need to. It's not a city responsibility, but to be cognizant of and aware of, and able to help drive solutions to those type of problems.
Okay.
It's like we have a number of hotels here. The other area we've got to be concerned about is human trafficking. Most people don't really believe there's a human trafficking problem
Because they're not aware of it.
because
or
they
they're
don't
just out
they
looking.
don't see it.
Yeah.
But
So-
I mean, I've worked with a number of organizations over the years, and I'm very aware of that type of environment.
Do you think Gwinnett County Police are doing a good job with that?
I think they're doing all they can do.
Okay.
I mean, big job there is education, because, you know, see something, do something.
Right.
You have to do that.
For sure. It's a tough question, right?
The other thing that I'm not quite sure how to address, but it requires funding, is, I mean, when I hear about 200 homeless kids at Norcross High School, we don't have any Rainbow Village in Peachtree Corners. This is something that the city, you can get some grants and money and things behind something like that, so that we could have a facility to do that. I've been involved in a number of the humblest people I've run into since being a councilman, when I've gotten calls and gone to see. And what we do currently is they take them downtown to the shelter, downtown Atlanta.
Right.
But most of them don't, but they have to agree to go.
Right.
They don't want to go because we have really nice people in Peachtree Corners, and they generate their revenue here.
Right. So do you foresee maybe a shelter of some sort in Peachtree Corners?
Well, I think we should have some place where people get help and support.
Okay. Is that
With
more,
a population of 43,000, the largest one with nothing, I
Right.
think that's something that we need to think about
Mhm.
and how we could go about it.
I mean, that could be
Maybe.
a private, public.
Yeah, public-private partnership.
What other issues are on your mind that you'd like to talk about?
Well, the only things that I would like to say is I appreciate the citizens of the city giving me the opportunity to serve them. I would like to continue to serve them if it's their choice.
Okay.
And I'm hopeful everybody will go vote. I'd like to have them vote for me, but I'd be equally honored if they went to vote, because it's a privilege we have that a lot of people have.
Yeah.
And I think it's extremely important to do that. And I want to say how much I enjoy serving with my fellow councilmen. We have a really good team.
Right.
And without the team goals that we've had, we would never have been able to accomplish what we have in this short period of time. I'm thrilled to be a part of Peachtree Corners.
And I'd be remiss to not say that you're being opposed in re-election.
That is true.
And there's other candidates like the mayor or other serving servants of the city that are running unopposed. You're actually the only one being opposed right now.
That's because I have a large seat. That means anybody can run against me.
Correct. So you're not stuck in a post or anything. So anyone in the city can actually vote for you.
Yes,
And vote
everyone in the city can vote
in this election.
in this election.
And this election, obviously, November 5th.
Well, the polls are open now from 9 to 4, Monday through Friday,
At
until
City
November
Hall.
1st at City Hall.
Right.
And then election day at 7 to 7
Okay.
at City Hall.
So advanced voting,
Advance voting at City
absentee
Hall.
voting.
Absentee voting.
Okay.
In fact, if anybody needs an absentee ballot, I'll be happy to get one to them.
Okay.
I took them over to Village Park last week
Did you?
and told them I would come back and get them and deliver them for them.
Very good. So they can find more information about you at www.reelect. Is
Lorri
that right?
5.
Lorri 5. So it's re hyphen
Okay.
elect Lorri LORRI 5.com.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Or the committee to re-elect Lorri Christopher on Facebook.
On Facebook, cool. And if they want to reach you, I mean, on Twitter, you're at Lorri LORRI 504, and they really can find and reach out to you.
And they can
through any of
also
those.
reach out to me from the city side.
Okay. So go to the City of Peachtree Corners,
www.peachtreecornersga.gov.
ga.gov. You got it. That's cool. I think we've covered quite a bit. I appreciate you coming out. Lorri Christopher running for re-election for City Council of the City of Peachtree Corners.
And please invite everyone to vote.
Yes.
It's
thank
their
you.
privilege.
And don't forget when you
At
vote
City Hall.
at City Hall, because that election day is at your precinct for, I think there's nothing.
There's no precincts.
There's
there is
nothing going
nothing-
on besides
There's no voting except at City Hall.
at City Hall this year.
Yeah, this
Cool.
year.
Very good.
Yep.
Thank you, Lorri.
Thank you.